say New York is the city that never sleeps, but tonight they're walking into a nightmare. This isn't Broadway, this is the land. And in Cleveland, we fight for every inch. They bring the noise, they bring the lights, they bring the talk, we bring the pressure. But talk doesn't travel well in hostile territory. This isn't just another game. It's pride, it's grit, it's Cleveland basketball. And when that ball tips, we don't just compete, we attack. New York wants the spotlight? Let them have it. We're taking the win. Cavs versus Knicks. Let them know. Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy, Mac. Tonight, our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the New York Knicks, and y'all already know this is one of the ones, y'all. One of the matchups you got to get up for as a player and as a fan. The stage was set with Rocket Arena serving as the backdrop to what we were all expecting to be a heavyweight Eastern Conference bout. This one was packed with stars, right? Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, James Harden, Karl-Anthony Towns, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen. The list goes on and on. Yet, this was a regular season matchup, right? But there were more than just bragging rights on the line. Eastern Conference seeding matters, and matchups like this. New York entered today as the third seed at 37-21, and Cleveland as the fourth seed at 36-22. That meant that a Cleveland win would tie their records. Now, it should be noted that Cleveland had already won 2 of the season matchups so far, but tonight represented the Cavs' chance to avoid the sweep, the dreaded sweep. Also, this is about as marquee as it gets in terms of recent NBA rivalries for what it's worth. So I was hoping for a good one, and that's exactly what we got for most of this. But before we dive into the specifics, do your boy a favor, smash that like button, subscribe to keep the NBA content coming, and hit that notification bell so you stay locked in all season. Now let's dive in. So heading into this very hyped matchup, a very finite amount of things were on my mind to begin with. Let's start with something that many people were everybody was wondering about, this one specific thing to start, right? Who would draw the start at the 3 tonight? Could we see Dean Wade continue to start there? Would Sam Merrill, who started the second half versus OKC, draw the start? How about Jalen Tyson? Would he be called upon once more? Or maybe a fresh face like Keon Ellis? All have their pros, all have their cons, but this was a question that did not take long to answer. Ladies and gentlemen, there was none other than Dean Wade who got the job tonight. Kenny Atkinson decided to go with the starting lineup of James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Dean Wade, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen, which I don't mind at all considering the context here and considering the opponent that is in place for this New York Knicks team, which is Jalen Brunson, Michael Bridges, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Karl-Anthony Towns rounding things out. And, I love to start things off with some anecdotes, right? I love to throw my notes to the wind at points whenever we have a victory like this. And it's very hard for me to do that and go away from what I like to do in terms of how this podcast is run. But I got to say this, right? Dean Wade absolutely showed out tonight. He wasn't the only Cavalier to do his thing out there. James Harden, there was a lot of Cavaliers. Donovan Mitchell, everybody did a little bit of something to help contribute to this victory tonight. But if I'm being honest, I saw a lot of slander. I continue to see a lot of slander being thrown Dean Wade's way. And all Dean went out there and do is play one of the most impactful games that he has had all season long on both ends of the floor. But before we even get there, a couple of things to highlight, right? James Harden, this is his 7th game in Cleveland. In the previous 6, he entered today averaging 18.7 points, 5 boards, and 8.7 assists, 1 steal. He was shooting 50.7% from the field, including 47.1% from three-point distance on roughly 5.7 attempts in his 6 games prior to this as a Cleveland Cavalier. Dean Wade in particular, he came into this one averaging 5.8 points, 4.1 rebounds, and shooting just 35.9% from three-point distance, which isn't terrible, but when you consider the context of where he began the season at, it really starts to encapsulate just how much better he has been shooting as of late. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that I have to be crystal clear about. Coming directly after that Oklahoma City Thunder game that set the timeline ablaze with takes, some of them reasonable, some of them a little overboard, and some of them just flat out nonsensical. The Cavaliers had their work cut out for them in regard to shutting some of these folks up. Perhaps chief among them, Evan Mobley, who after pulling down just 2 rebounds against OKC really caught the ire of fans. And listen, I went back and I did watch the film, and many of those were missed opportunities on the part of others, not necessarily just Mobley, as there were long rebounds in which gang rebounding or team rebounding was probably supposed to be a little bit better. I'm not excusing it entirely, but after rewatching, it was pretty clear that many of those weren't exactly on him. Either way, he needed a substantial performance to quiet the naysayers, or at least a better one on the glass after the naysayers came out in droves after a game like he put up against OKC. Of course, it did not help that it would come against an opponent that has given the Cavs problems over the years, in that of the New York Knicks. And we all know who the boogeyman has been for the New York Knicks, specifically as it relates to the Cleveland Cavaliers. That, my friends, is Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson has been an absolute terror in these matchups for years for this Cavs team. I know everybody likes to think about the 2022-23 postseason between these two. And don't get me wrong, that still holds merit. It still holds a little bit of weight, but I think people are so far into the past in terms of their line of thought that they just refuse to believe that anything else could be true. Mitchell Robinson, on the surface, right, has averaged 7.6 rebounds, 6.3 points, and 1.8 blocks in 18 career games versus the Cavaliers. On the surface, those do look like stellar numbers. However, if there's one area in which Robinson has absolutely dominated Cleveland, you guys know what this is. It's offensive rebounds. Mitchell Robinson has absolutely destroyed Cleveland on the offensive glass. He had pulled down 3.7 offensive rebounds per game, to be exact, against this team. He is second in the NBA in this specific category, though. So what I'm trying to say here is that while people seem to think that he just dominates Cleveland in particular, that couldn't actually be further from the truth. He does this against just about everybody, right? All of that said, none of that shit mattered early on, right? That was the one thing that I was concerned with. I've conversed with so many people over on social media, various outlets, in regards to what worried me the most about the New York Knicks. A lot of people were like, why doesn't Jalen Brunson worry you? Why doesn't Jalen Brunson bother you? Well, I'll tell you why. Dean Wade shut that motherfucker down. Dean Wade absolutely owns Jalen Brunson. Dennis Schroeder did his thing out there too. We'll talk about Dennis as well. But that being said, none of that Mitchell Robinson stuff truly mattered early on, as it was Jarrett Allen who was actually out there setting the tone early on. He looked like a man amongst boys out there. And then there was Donovan Mitchell, who kept the fans hype and engaged with a jam off of a feed from Dennis Schroeder. And speaking of Dennis, this man was absolutely putting Jalen Brunson through hell early on. Dean Wade is going to get a lot of the credit defensively against Jalen Brunson and holding him below what you would expect him to put up in terms of a matchup like this. But Dennis is not to be fucked with either, right? He provided the energy out there on the defensive side of the basketball that you absolutely need in pivotal games like this, right? That, to me, was apparent. But honestly, while many Cavaliers contributed to Cleveland taking an early lead, the player of the game up to that point, it was Dean Wade. It's just so hard to get away from that. Don't adjust your audio. You heard that right. Dean Wade was probably the player of the game up to that point. It was a nightmare for Brunson and company, as he was disruptive in transition, was a menace when defending in isolation. And perhaps the best of all of this is that he was knocking down his shots. And let me just say this. People have been getting on Wade for that latter part when Wade has actually been shooting extremely well as of late entering this game, shooting 55.6% from three-point distance over his last 10 appearances. He absolutely earned the minutes that he got tonight. I know a lot of people were skeptical on him earning the starting job as of late, and they were really questioning who would be the starter tonight? A lot of people wanted to put Sam out there. A lot of people wanted to put Jalen out there. And while I would have not been pissed off, I wouldn't have been pissed off at all if Kenny went that direction. I can certainly understand why he went the direction he went tonight, as Wade has been a known Brunson stopper. And once those defensive stats come out tomorrow, ooh, you know your boy cannot wait to post them and throw them in a lot of people's faces. Again, it is the regular season, so we do have to tamper things down a little bit. But I'm sorry. When Dean catches shit, nobody is sticking up for this guy. And I feel like whenever he has a great game, great performances, I have to do it. In that first half alone, 9 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, was 3 of 6 from the field, with all 3 of those makes coming from 3-point line, 3 of 4 to be exact. And yet there will still be some jackass in the comments saying, so. Either way, he's valuable. That said, New York was not just going to quit in this game. They did execute a 10-2 run to pull within 1 point before James Harden teardrop shot put them back up 3 at 52-49. But thankfully, Jarrett Allen was right there to keep putting the hammer down and helped Cleveland out to a 60-54 lead at the half. The one thing that I do have to say about this game in the first 2 quarters is I was legitimately, again, with the context being applied of how Mitchell Robinson has absolutely terrorized Cleveland on the offensive glass, I was absolutely I was a little worried about how they would handle the defensive glass out there, because Cleveland, this has not been necessarily the best rebounding team as of late, and they have routinely struggled when Robinson is on the floor and he's generating those extra possessions. But lo and behold, through the first 2 quarters, they only allowed 8 second chance points, and they got 7 themselves, right? And in terms of points in the paint, yeah, they did get outscored by the margin of 6, right? 32-26. But I was very satisfied with what we saw in the early going from this team. It wasn't like they were spamming anything in particular. They were just getting good looks, getting downhill, getting Jarrett Allen involved. Guys were knocking down shots when they needed to, namely Dean Wade, a couple of others out there. And you got a really well-rounded performance through those first 2 quarters. It was by no means perfect, but against a New York Knicks team that you know can be really, really pesky, I mean, I loved it. I absolutely love this. Was a gutsy win for them. I think coming after that OKC loss, they needed a performance like this. And I said this on Twitter just the other day, right? Come right against New York, win, and all is forgiven. And that's exactly what happened. And I loved to see that be the case in terms of tonight's performance. When you look at Cleveland in particular, there was a number of players that stood out. I keep referencing Dean Wade. He just really takes the cake for me, because not only was he awesome on the defensive side of the ball, helping, and he wasn't the only one. Again, I don't want to misconstrue things here. He was not the only person that gave Jalen Brunson issues, but he was a huge piece in Jalen Brunson being limited to 6 of 19 from the floor and finishing with just 20 points, a very inefficient 20 points at that. But it wasn't just Dean out there that was really doing his thing. I thought that Jalen Tyson actually had a very solid performance in the final 2 quarters of this game. 12 points for him, 8 rebounds. We know Jalen Tyson is an above average rebound from a positional standpoint. And I do know that with Dean Wade starting, they are electing to give Tyson a solid amount of minutes at the 4, which I don't love. And it really takes away from what he does best out there at times, as he's trying to play up a position defensively. But he is capable of doing so in stretches. And I thought tonight, especially in the 3rd and 4th quarters, he did his thing out there. Donovan Mitchell, not the most efficient night from Don, just 5 of 18 from the floor, including 2 of 8 from 3-point distance. But I'll take it. I will absolutely take what he brought to the table tonight, because his downhill rim pressure out there, getting guys involved, getting to the line. He took 14 free throws tonight, did Spida. You gotta have that, especially for a player like James Harden, who came to the Cavaliers shooting 10 plus free throws a game, and he got 0 tonight. Some of that, frankly, is a little disturbing. I knew that the calls would drop off a bit, but I mean, I'd be lying to myself if I said he was not getting those, that I didn't think he was getting the whistles that he normally got in LA, because he's not. And some of this, again, to further contextualize this, He is not driving to the rim as much as he did with LA. He entered tonight driving the basketball just 11 times per game. For LA, it was 14 plus. And anytime the drives are down, anytime the usage is down, anytime the time of possession is down, it's definitely going to lead to less contact at the rim, but 0 free throws? I mean, that's absolutely crazy. He's just not getting the calls that he once did. And thankfully, Spidey was there to help pick up some of the slack. Evan and Jarrett also got to the line a good solid amount of times, although you wish they would knock them down a little bit more efficiently as they would finish a collective 8 of 13. But I'll live with it because I thought Jarrett Allen had a phenomenal performance tonight. And speaking of Jarrett Allen, right? Way to put those lights too bright comments to bed once more. It's never going to be something he can do all in one game, but each and every performance that he has or every opportunity that he has to have a big time performance against the Knicks is always a good thing because that is how you change the narrative. Now, again, it's a regular season game. The playoffs are what ultimately are going to matter the most for a lot of players on this roster, including Dean Wade, including Jarrett Allen, including Sam Merrill, and a number of others. But during the regular season, this is about as good as it gets because you got these marquee matchups. You got a lot of shit being talked by fans on both sides, including yours truly. But I absolutely think this is good for this team to have done, right? I think that this team, especially after the trade deadline, is well equipped to take on teams like New York. OKC is just in a fucking league of their own. But I'll tell you what, right? I feel like having Keon Ellis, having Dennis Schroeder out there, who is underrated at the point of attack on the defensive side of the basketball. You saw what he was doing to Brunson out there, absolutely locking that dude down. That's what you need. You need guys who you are unafraid to leave on an island, and you don't have to be switch heavy. You can just ask them to take them out of the game or at the very least make life difficult on them. They have a lot of confidence in Dean doing that for a lot of players out there, whether that be the Jason Tatums or Jalen Brunsons of the world. But having players like Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder being able to do that off of your bench, that's also really, really impactful and probably feels really good to have as a coach as well, knowing you can turn to those options. And I thought from the defensive side of the basketball today, they really did have a solid performance. And I know that some of this is like New York missing shots. They missed a ton of shots they normally hit. They shot just 27% from three-point range tonight. They were 10 of 37. That's no bueno. That's terrible. Brunson was 3 of 7. OG was 1 of 6. Josh Hart, who's actually having a phenomenal season, albeit on lower volume. He was shooting 40+% from three-point distance this year, but he shot just 2 of 8 from deep tonight. And in regards to Hart specifically, he draws a lot of comparisons, or rather, should I say, Jalen Tyson is drawing a lot of comparisons to Josh Hart. Hart had traditionally not been a great three-point shooter. He actually entered tonight shooting 40.4% from three-point range, but again, just 2 of 8 from deep tonight. So the entire damn team struggled over there. You love to see that. Jose Alvarado, one of their recent acquisitions, 1 of 4. Mohamed Diawara, 1 of 4 from three-point distance. Landry Shamet, 0 of 3 from three-point distance. Nobody had a great game. And you know that you were doing your job defensively when for a large portion of this game, it wasn't Jalen Brunson that was leading them in field goal attempts. It was Bridges. it was Bridges out there that was attempting the most shots for them at one point. And anytime that is the case, anytime Mikal Bridges is the leader in terms of field goal attempts, you are doing something right on the defensive side of the basketball because one, you're either stymieing Jalen Brunson at the point of attack and you're taking the ball out of his hands, or you are funneling him to the bigs inside, making him kick it out to Mikal on the perimeter or in the mid-range. So you got to love what you saw on the defensive side of the basketball. Evan Mobley, I thought Mobley had a much better performance tonight. It wasn't anything to write home about, but I'll take 12-7, right, in 25 minutes of action, give or take, on 4 or 7 from the field. It wasn't spectacular by any stretch of the imagination, but again, adding in the context, and I know people hate that word. They hate the C word. It's important to understand that he is still coming back from a calf injury that is, it doesn't always yield great results in the early going for guys coming back off an injury like this. I think this is just his third game back since suffering that. And he is on a minutes restriction. And I think it's going to take some time, especially considering the additional context of adding multiple new players to your rotation in Harden, in Ellis, in Schroeder. These are all things that have culminated in this team having to mix and match at times, and the lineups not looking great at all times. But if you can win a game like this, knowing that it's still a work in progress, you should feel really, really good about it. And again, I think they are now what? Were they 8-1? They are 8-1 over their last 9 games. That's some crazy stuff. That has to make you feel good about the direction of this team. And some of those have come against some bottom feeders, but some of them have come against some legitimate playoff caliber competition as well. And I know that the OKC game was not great, but they showed a lot of heart and hustle and fight after that first quarter where they turned it over 10 plus times. So I think this is a great bounce back game for them. I thought you had multiple performances that contributed to it. It wasn't just a one-man show. You saw guys out there on the defensive side of the basketball making life difficult for New York, and you saw people knocking down timely shots. And it's not like Cleveland was wholly efficient tonight as well. They were 42.5% from the field, including 37.1% from three-point distance. Not necessarily scorching, but they knocked them down when they needed to. James Harden would finish with 20 points and 4 assists tonight, and he was 4 of 7 from three-point range. Dean was 3 of 5. And I'll tell you what, who I really was hoping for a better performance from tonight for the Cavaliers, Sam Merrill. Merrill, from a defensive standpoint, he looked pretty solid out there, but from an offensive standpoint, he did not knock down any shots. But as I say pretty frequently on the show, it's not just about knocking down shots. It's the sheer gravity, the sheer threat of you knocking down that three-point shot. It's the spacing that you provide at times. It's the defense knowing that they have to account for you out there, and that's a weapon within itself. The defense knows that they have to chase Sam Merrill around screens. They know they have to be aware of his presence at all times on the court, or he will make them pay for it. And that's a weapon within itself. I think that's not often talked about enough. But even in a night where he goes 0-4 from three-point range, I'm not necessarily going to shit on him too much, because I do believe that gravity is really, really important for them, especially when you kind of have some non-shooters out there in those specific lineups where you have double big out there with Mobley. And in regard to Mobley, too, should be know that he did knock down a triple tonight. This has been a pretty bad season in regards to that three-point percentage for Mobley, who entered tonight shooting just 31.1% from distance, but he did knock down his lone attempt tonight. I remain interested to see how they handle the overall shot attempts across the board for everybody, though, as they work in all these new pieces. Because Mobley, in the minutes restriction that he's currently playing on, took just 7 attempts. Dean Wade had more than that. Hell, Dean Wade had more attempts than Jarrett Allen did as well. So, I mean, that tells you kind of the direction that they're trending in here. It's not heliocentric by any stretch of the imagination, revolving around Donovan or James, but it is it's going to be interesting to see how things are kind of distributed as time wears on, because this team is pretty deep, in case you didn't know, and they have a lot of weapons and a lot of mouths to feed out there. So one game you might see a guy have like 12, 13 field goal attempts. In another game, you might see him have 7 or 8. And that's probably just going to be the case. Unless you're Donovan Mitchell or James Harden, a lot of the time your field goal attempts are probably going to fluctuate. Your touches are probably going to fluctuate, as the lineups do. But I thought this was really great performance on both sides of the basketball. Not a lot to be angry about. In terms of the offensive rebounds, I will give Mitchell Robinson his credit. He did what he always typically does for this team. He did pull down 8 offensive rebounds by himself, as he would finish with 15 individual rebounds, 7 of those on the defensive glass. So give him credit. But as I also mentioned, this is not exclusive. This is not exclusive to the Cavaliers alone. He does this against most teams. This is actually, if you're looking at the 3.7 offensive rebounds that he pulls down against Cleveland, that's not even in the top 10 in terms of the teams. That's actually 15th amongst the 29 teams that he's played against throughout his career. It's not even that bad. I think far too many people don't understand how good of an offensive rebounder Mitchell Robinson truly is. So you're looking at him from an individual standpoint and you're just thinking, oh man, this guy kills Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. Yeah, he has historically, but he kind of does this against everybody. It's not just the Cavs bigs, as people like to point to. He is legitimately one of the best offensive rebounders in in recent memory, in recent NBA history, right? He is in the 100th percentile in terms of offensive rebound percentage at 22%. The 100th percentile, guys. There literally is nobody that has been better this year. Number two is Steven Adams, who I think is out for the year at 20.1%. That just kind of tells you like he's in a league of his own. He has been no worse than the 89th percentile in his entire stay in the league. Since the 2018-19 season, he's been no worse than the 89th percentile. And he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons of 90th percentile or better. It just goes to show how good of an offensive rebounder he is. So I will give him the credit that he deserves. That was a concern for me heading into this one. I really was trying to see how they would account for that, because it's not like Robinson starts the games for New York. It's Karl-Anthony Towns who they use as their 5. And I get why they do that, because Mitchell's not really a starting caliber center, in my opinion, outside of an occasional spot start. I mean, he has started 14 games this year, but he's not really somebody that you look to be the starter out there, especially for this specific Knicks team. And I think that's important, especially considering he's always dealing with some type of injury throughout the course of his career. He's never played more than 72 games, and that came back during the 2021-22 season. So he's been kind of brittle out there himself. For Robinson, though, you got to give him credit. And so it's a short spurt, just 19. Again, I want you to let this sink in. In just 19.6 minutes per game, Mitchell Robinson is currently second in the NBA in, I believe, in offensive rebounds per game, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Like, I don't know. It's just absolutely ridiculous that he's been able to do that. I don't understand how you let this guy do what he does on a night-to-night basis on that end. But you just got to give it to him, because the motor is there, the energy is there, and he's always been elite at doing that. So I'll give him his credit. What else? What else can we talk about here? Because I feel like in just such an open and shut game at times as this was, there were some small things that occurred that probably do deserve to be discussed. Another one that I probably should point out is the fact that Keon Ellis continues to be just a chaos agent out there. He would finish with another block tonight. 4 points for him tonight, just 2 or 3 from the field. But honestly, in 15 minutes and 50 seconds of action, I'm not asking for Keon Ellis to be a true like 7, 8, 9, 10 points per game type of guy. I just need him to be out there knocking down the occasional triple when it does come his way, like 2, 3 attempts, maybe 3, 4 attempts per game. And again, this is probably going to be scaled up or down depending upon the play time. But I'm not looking for anything else out of him outside of knocking down the open shot and playing hellacious point of attack defense and just being a chaos agent out there. And he does that. He's done that since he has gotten here. He's just such a phenomenal piece. And I think he entered today within the 100th percentile in block percentage among his positional group, and in the, I think the 98th or 99th percentile, maybe the 93rd or 4th percentile in terms of steal percentage. So he's been pretty damn good in both of those categories. And I think there are huge reasons why Cleveland decided to pick him up. Actually, 96th percentile in steal percentage at 3%. So give him his credit. Even in such a small spurt, I just think you have to, you got to realize the weapons that you have at your disposal. And with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the chat. I see a lot of them down here. I may not be able to get to all of them. I appreciate you guys for joining in. Giles McStrange says, Diener. Reef Gang says, almost like Ev is returning from injury and learning Harden. He will be fine. Middle finger to the haters. Yeah. He also says Mitchell Robinson does this to everyone. People just blow it up against Cavs. Again, yeah. I mean, I think I did a pretty good job of pointing that out. Definitely a point of emphasis for people who may or may not watch Mitchell Robinson all that often. He literally does this to everybody. He is that good of an offensive rebounder. Palace Life Kick says, y'all need to quit talking about my Cavs crazy, especially Evan Mobley. HJ17 Gaming says, good win. Kenny still needs to figure out how to keep size on the floor at times. I can't wait for Mobley to actually be able to play without a minutes restriction. That's a tall, tough order unless you're really leaning into Thomas Bryant more, which a lot of people argue they should, and or you're playing Naquan Tomlin. Now, here's the deal. I think it's heavily matchup dependent. For me, in a matchup that features a guy like Mitchell Robinson, yeah, I think that Thomas Bryant minutes probably would have made more sense. And I think Bryant did enter the game tonight, but he played like 2 minutes or some shit like that, like 2 minutes and 42 seconds of action. This is a type of team that you got Thomas Robinson for. I mean, obviously, the offensive rebounding of Mitchell Robinson stands out among most stats from this Knicks team. But you brought in a guy like Thomas Robinson for the bigger centers in this league. And I think that would have been a good use case to put him out there. But in terms of playing small, it's just more than likely going to be the case because of the just severe amount of depth that they have in that guard rotation, right? Don, James, Schroeder, Ellis, Sam, Max eventually, I'm assuming. I feel like I'm forgetting a name here or two. Tyson will get minutes at the 2 and the 3 and the 4 at times. He's positionally versatile. But you get the point. They have so many guys that deserve minutes that somebody's going to be playing up a position a lot of times, and they're asking a lot of Tyson. They're asking a lot of Dean, maybe a sprinkle in some more Naquan Tomlin, especially when you need energy out there. Maybe a sprinkle in Thomas Bryant when Jarrett Allen is struggling or Evan Mobley's having a rough game. But it's a difficult thing to try and discern because the majority of your roster is 6'5" and below. It's DZ says belt to ass. Absolutely was. Lena QT says good win and really good defense. Nate 406 says belt to ass. Yeah. Andrew Coachell says good win. Single big lineups are no bueno. Rude Lane says Dennis the Menace. Neverbloom says where are the Dean haters at today? Honestly, I converse with them all the time. What it usually ends up happening is people, and this is such a paradox to me. It's such a ridiculous thing because so many people came into this season saying, oh, the regular season doesn't matter. It's all about the playoffs. But they'll yap about things that happen in the regular season. They'll use a game in the regular season, like the Evan Mobley game they just had against OKC. They will use that as fodder for whatever narrative that they're trying to push. It's like, it's important to contextualize certain things. And this is why I say the regular season still does matter to a degree. Obviously, the postseason matters more than everything else, but you can't just ignore what you see in the regular season. Some of these things do actually translate. And I think that a lot of what you're seeing from this team can translate in a postseason setting. It doesn't mean it's automatically going to be the case. It's not as if Dean Wade is automatically all of a sudden going to become this sharp shooting guy at the 3 and be able to stay routinely healthy out there. That is not a given, but I'm choosing to believe that maybe this is the year because I'm putting myself out there to be hurt. I'm choosing to believe that Jarrett Allen will finally have a straight through, like every single game, have a performance that is deemed respectable. And I thought that most of his performance against Miami and Indiana, with the exception of the final 2 games of that Indiana series, it is never necessarily always going to be as black and white as, oh, this guy, he's great all the time or he's shitty all the time. There's a lot of gray in there too. But what I'm trying to say here is this, right? A lot of people want to use these individual sample sizes, these singular games to push narratives in the regular season. And they complain about, oh, it's the regular season, it doesn't matter, but they'll still use that as a reason to shit on some of these guys. And so to me, like, you got to understand that a lot of what you're seeing here can actually be translated. And if you're going to shit on a player for having a bad regular season performance, give them a little praise when they have a good regular season performance. That's just what it is. So the Dean Wade haters, what I've come to understand from them is that it doesn't matter if he has a good regular season game. They're always going to say, "Oh, he just doesn't do anything to playoffs." It is what it is. Let's see here. Chaz Erica says, "Please use TB more." A's 8975 says, "Great mix of Jalen Dean by Kenny." Yeah, I thought so. I thought it could have been a lot better against some of the other teams prior to that. But as they try and figure out where Jalen Tyson and Dean Wade fit in this new look rotation, it's definitely going to be something that is a running theme moving forward. Now, I know a lot of people still believe that Tyson should start and that he's earned the start. And I don't disagree with that, but sometimes it's not about how talented a player is, it's about fit. And when Dean Wade is able to knock down shots at a respectable clip and clamp on the defensive side of the basketball like he did, and he's not a terrible rebounder either, and you don't have to worry about the on-ball touches. He's strictly off ball. It makes perfect sense why you would choose to start him over Jalen Tyson. IG Basketball Talk says, just the third game in Harden's career with 18 plus field goal attempts and 0 free throws. That's absolutely crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. Basketball Gooner says, also off topic, but I love the Larry Nance Jr. jersey in the background. He's such a cool dude. When he resigned, he sent me an autographed jersey and shoes. Also got me tickets to a game to meet him in person. Same thing, right? I think that Larry is a really, really cool guy. I've talked to Larry off and on over the years. When his first stint in Cleveland ended, I was a little devastated just because, like, I loved the fact that, you know, he's basically Northeast Ohio royalty because of the Nance family name. And when he returned, I hit him up and he popped on the podcast a number of times. I met him in a game. He autographed a jersey for me in person. You know, I got to meet a couple other players. I think I already told this story about I got a Darius Garland autograph on a Donovan Mitchell jersey. I love to bring that up as much as I can, but Larry is such a cool, down to earth dude. And I know that the play hasn't necessarily translated for him the way that I thought it would coming over from Atlanta, but he's a good veteran presence to have off that bench. And I love that. He is a local guy. Right. Hornsman says, fear the beard facts, not Darius. Vincent Robinson says Mitchell did good tonight. Yeah, I mean, he got to the line a ton of times. If we're talking about the right Mitchell, right? If we're talking about Donovan Mitchell, yes. I do give Mitchell Robinson his credit too, but Donovan Mitchell got to the line a lot. He wasn't necessarily efficient from the field, but he got downhill and drew a ton of contact. Kingzo JR says Tyson had some big rebounds tonight. He did. I think he finished with 8 rebounds. He is one of the better rebounding guards, wings in the league, considering the size. And you never have to worry about him going and positioning himself for a loose board. And you love to see that. Talking to Grub Media says, Mac and Chad, a couple of Knicks YouTubers were ranting about the loss, and they just had to take a shot at Cleveland. I said that New York is dirty, manifested in this subway station spell like B. I'd never try to stoop to that level. I just don't understand it, but I've never been to New York, so I can't speak on it, but I do hear a lot of things that aren't necessarily pleasant about New York. I'll leave it at that. Brooklyn Vibe says, are Cavs winning ring? He also says no. I mean, maybe not, but I think they're better positioned to win a title this year than New York is, if I'm being honest. If we're being objective here, you can't tell me, because again, this is a much different Cleveland team that you guys saw where I don't know. You say your name is Brooklyn Vibes. I'm not sure if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan or if you're a Knicks fan. I'm going to assume you're a Knicks fan, and that's, if you're not, you're not. But I'll just say this, objectively speaking, this is a much different team than the first 2 battles that they had. There is no Darius. There is no DeAndre. There is no Lonzo. Sub-in James Harden, Keon, and Dennis Schroeder. The team is much different. Much different. I guess that's dog poop all over NYC. Let's see here. You're both? How does that work? I mean, I'm just trying to shit on fandoms. I'm not trying to shit on fandoms at all because there are some people that I know that operate the same way, but I've never been able to wrap my head around being a fan of two separate franchises at the same time. I can't wrap my head around that. Um, Orange Smith says, "Do you like the orange jerseys?" Chat. Yeah, I think that I've seen better jerseys, but I'm not necessarily not a fan of them. I had to get one myself. I'm wearing one of the shirts right now. I mean, pretty big fan. Let's see here. Kingzo says, "Why we got ops in the chat after a belt we just gave them?" Ops are always in the chat. What I've noticed is that, like, even after the OKC game, whether it's a win or a loss, sometimes they'll be there. Sometimes it's friendly people. Sometimes it's not. I don't mind conversing with fans of the other team as long as it's respectful. The obvious choice says Knicks fans are horrible. They are the most self-absorbed people in the world. I think Yankees fans are worse. I think Cowboys fans are maybe the worst of the worst. I can't stand Cowboys fans. I'm sorry if some of you guys in here are Cowboys fans. I just cannot stand the goddamn Cowboys. John Bontia says, "Rich for nothing. Too many people. Nowhere to park." No weird shit. Man, you guys are letting the takes fly. You guys are letting the takes fly about New York. Again, I've never been there. It's on the bucket list, but HJ says Knicks fans are the Cowboys fans of the NBA. Denise Nokia says we gave the Knicks BTA. Yes, we did. Let's see here. PC Brown, Ohio says Porter has really been banished to the bench, and I'm not mad at it. And it sucks, right? I think that Craig Porter Jr. has acquitted himself pretty well this year, all things considered. He did outplay Lonzo, but the bar wasn't high, if we're being honest. And this is coming from somebody who considers himself a Lonzo Ball fan. But again, we all got to be objective here. Craig Porter Jr. outplayed him, but there's no way in hell after you acquire James Harden, you have Donovan Mitchell, you acquire Dennis and Keon, those two have to play. You have Sam Merrill, you got Jalen Tyson, you got Max eventually. There's just no room for him in the rotation on a good night in terms of the rotation being healthy. So it's just one of those situations where it's unfortunate because the team is just too stacked at the guard rotation. So I think that you could definitely make a case in certain games to play him if somebody else is struggling, but he should not be in the immediate rotation if most of your roster is healthy. The only person that's not out there right now is Max from a health standpoint. So I think it's about as fair as it gets. I'm trying to be objective here, but man, this was just such a phenomenal performance on both sides of the basketball. Very, very excited about seeing Dean, the Brunson stopper, Wade, clamp up Jalen. Very excited about seeing Dennis do much the same to Brunson. Excited for Jarrett Allen to have a great performance against the Knicks. That's always nice to see. And objectively speaking, I'll give the credit where it's due to guys like Mitchell Robinson, who came in and did his thing, as I thought he would. People keep asking me, what worried me the most about this matchup, and I continue to say Mitchell Robinson, not Jalen Brunson, not Karl-Anthony Towns, but more so Mitchell Robinson, and to a lighter degree, OG. OG actually was somebody I had on the radar too. But on behold, it was a pretty dominant win for the Cavaliers on both sides of basketball. If you are still here by chance, do your boy a favor, hit that like button, subscribe. If you're not yet, subscribe to the It's Cavalier podcast. Do the same for Positive Hooper. Trying to grow that channel as much as I can. I'm trying to push out a little bit more content over there. If you want to support the show in a small but helpful way, consider becoming a member over on Patreon, or you can do so here on YouTube as well for as little as $1 a month. I appreciate you for every time you guys join this chat. You make it lively. You make me want to continue doing them. But even if you don't do any of those things, I'll still be here creating the content because I love this team. And I know you guys do too. Go Cavs.